In 1947, a Boston physician named Henry Beck sent a 5-page letter to the American Medical Association warning that the systematic removal of grandmother medicine from American hospitals would create a generation of patients who did not know how to be healthy. The AMA filed the letter without comment. By 1980, the average American grandmother had stopped passing her mason jar ferments down to her daughters. By 2024, the average American family was spending $4,400 per person per year on pharmaceutical and supplement products their great-grandmothers would not have recognized as food. Number 14 on tonight's list was sold in every American drugstore until 1916, then quietly removed from the United States Pharmacopoeia. Number 3 is the only ferment that modern Japanese and Korean researchers have linked to a measurable 7 to 11-year extension of healthy lifespan in adults over 50, and your doctor has never been taught it exists. These 20 mason jar ferments were so effective that the supplement and pharmaceutical industries spent 80 years quietly replacing them with capsules. Before we start, hit subscribe because what you're about to learn could save your family thousands of dollars a year on pills you do not need. Let us count them down. Number 20, switchel. Every New England farmhouse from Vermont to Pennsylvania had a stoneware crock of switchel on the summer porch from the 1690s until the 1940s. Your colonial grandmother carried a clay jug of it out to the haymaking fields at noon. She gave it to her sons cutting hay in the August heat. She gave it to her husband when he came in from the barn. She gave it to herself between churning butter and pulling weeds, apple cider vinegar, raw maple syrup, fresh grated ginger, and cold spring water. 3 days on the counter. The fermentation produced a tangy, slightly carbonated drink that replaced sodium, potassium and magnesium lost through summer sweat. A quart of switchel cost 3 cents to make in 1890. A 16-ounce Gatorade today retails for $2.49 and contains 36 grams of high-fructose corn syrup. Your grandmother was not making sports drinks. She was making medicine. Number 19. The apple cider vinegar mother. Every American farmhouse kitchen from the 1700s through the 1950s had a glass jug of homemade apple cider vinegar in the pantry with a thick gelatinous disc floating on top, called the mother. Your grandmother used the mother to start the next batch. She gave a piece of it to her newly married daughter to start her own household supply. She passed it down through generations like a piece of inherited furniture. She used the finished vinegar to clean wounds, soothe sore throats, dress salads, preserve meat, and treat indigestion. A gallon of finished cider vinegar cost about 8 cents in 1920. A bottle of Bragg's organic apple cider vinegar at Whole Foods today retails for $7. Your grandmother was not buying vinegar, she was growing it. Number 18, clabber. Every southern and Appalachian farmhouse kept a glass crock of raw whole milk on the kitchen counter that the family deliberately allowed to sour over 24 to 48 hours. The wild lactobacillus on the cow's udder, the milking pail, and the kitchen air did the entire fermentation. Your grandmother spooned the clabber over hot cornbread. She fed it to sick children. She used it to leaven biscuits when she ran out of baking soda. She knew, without anyone telling her, that the soured milk fed the gut in a way the fresh milk could not. A gallon of fresh milk in 1925 cost about 28 cents. The clabber it became was free. A bottle of probiotic kefir at Whole Foods today retails for $5.49 and contains a fraction of the bacterial diversity your grandmother got from leaving the milk on the counter. Number 17. Beet kvass. Every Eastern European immigrant household from the Russian wave of 1881 onward kept a stoneware crock of beet kvass in the back of the icebox. Your Russian or Polish or Ukrainian grandmother peeled and cubed 2 beets, dropped them in a quart jar with a tablespoon of sea salt and filtered water, and left them to ferment for 7 days. The finished kvass was deep ruby red, salty, slightly effervescent, and so concentrated in nitrate-derived blood pressure compound that a 2019 paper in the journal Pharmacological Reports documented daily consumption lowering systolic blood pressure by 8 milliliters of mercury over 4 weeks. Your babushka was not drinking beet juice. She was taking what would later become a $30 a month prescription called lisinopril, except hers cost about 40 cents and tasted better. Number 16. Sauerkraut from the root cellar. Every German immigrant household kept a 5-gallon crock of cabbage and salt fermenting in the cool corner of the root cellar for 90 days before the first frost. Your Oma shredded the cabbage with a wooden mandolin she had brought from the old country. She pounded it down in the crock with her bare hands until the salt drew out the juice. She weighed it down with a clean stone. She did not open the crock for 3 months. The 90-day root cellar fermentation produced between 14 and 28 distinct lactobacillus strains, compared to between 2 and 4 in commercial pasteurized kraut today. A barrel of homemade kraut cost about $1.20 to make in 1935. A jar of pasteurized bubbies at the grocery today is $7.49 and contains a fraction of the live culture diversity. Your Oma was not making cabbage. She was making the most diverse probiotic on the continent. Number 15. Fire cider. Every Appalachian farmhouse kept a quart jar of horseradish, garlic, onion, ginger, turmeric, cayenne, and herbs steeping in raw apple cider vinegar on the kitchen shelf from October through April. Your hill country granny took a tablespoon at the first sign of a cold. She gave it to her grandchildren before they walked to school in winter. She poured it over salads in summer. Rosemary Gladstar codified the modern recipe in the 1980s, but the practice itself was already 100 years old by then in Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia kitchens. A quart of homemade fire cider cost about $4 to make in 1958. A 4-ounce bottle of commercial fire cider at a health food store today retails for $18. Your granny was not making cold medicine, she was making winter insurance. Number 14. Yarrow Honey Oxymel. Every American battlefield surgeon from the Civil War through World War I carried a small jar of yarrow leaves fermented in raw honey when morphine supplies ran out. Your great-great-grandmother on the farm made it from yarrow, growing wild along every fence line in the country. 1 cup yarrow leaves and flowers, 1 cup raw honey, and 14 days in a dark cabinet. She gave it to her husband for headaches. She gave it to her children for fevers. She gave it to herself for menstrual cramps. Yarrow appeared in the United States Pharmacopoeia from 1820 until 1916, when it was quietly removed not because it stopped working, but because the synthetic painkiller industry needed shelf space. A bottle of yarrow honey cost about 15 cents to make in 1908. A 30-day supply of Aleve today cost $22. Your great-great-grandmother was not making honey. She was making the painkiller every drugstore had sold for 96 years. Number 13. The Amish elderberry honey jar. Every Lancaster County Anabaptist household from 1737 onward kept a quart jar of black elderberry berries fermented in raw honey with ginger and cloves through cold and flu season. Your Pennsylvania Dutch grandmother harvested the berries from the bush behind the chicken yard every September. Mary Stoltzfus codified the family recipe in the front cover of her Bible in 1817. The recipe has been used continuously in Lancaster County for 208 years. A 4-ounce portion of homemade elderberry honey costs about $1.40. A 4-ounce bottle of Sambucol at CVS retails for $40. Your Amish grandmother was not making syrup. She was making the only thing that has been documented to cut influenza recovery time by 4 days in randomized clinical trials. Number 12. The Amish honey garlic jar. Every Lancaster County household kept a wide-mouthed jar of crushed garlic submerged in raw clover honey on the back of the cook stove for 6 weeks. Your Anabaptist grandmother passed it down from Hans Herr, who arrived from Switzerland in 1737. She gave it to the family at the first hint of throat tickle. She gave it to her husband for ear infection. She gave it to the cows and the chickens when they were off their feed. The crushed garlic converts allicin into allicin through enzymatic activity, and the 6-week honey fermentation stabilizes it into S-allylcysteine, which the gut absorbs at over 90% bioavailability. The Lancaster County Amish have not bought antibiotics for 8 generations. They have a jar. Your grandmother was not making garlic confit, she was making penicillin's evergreen replacement. We are halfway, 10 ferments down, 10 to go. Stay with me, because the climax at number 1 tonight is the only ferment that survived 1,428 years of unbroken transmission inside a Chinese Buddhist monastery, and modern Stanford research has linked it to a measurable extension of healthy lifespan in adults over 50. Number 11. Kanji. Every Punjabi household from northern India kept a quart jar of black carrots, mustard seeds, and salt fermenting on the rooftop in the weeks leading up to Holi every March. Your dadi or your nani brewed it for 600 years before the British Raj tried to suppress household ferments in 1907. She poured a small cup for each member of the family at the first meal of the day. She gave it to her grandchildren before school. She knew it cleared the winter sluggishness out of the body. The finished kanji is deep purple, packed with anthocyanin pigments comparable to acai berries. A 2021 randomized trial in the Journal of Integrated Health Sciences documented kanji outperforming a commercial $40 probiotic capsule for lactobacillus colonization in stool samples. Your daddy was not making winter juice, she was making medicine. Number 10. Smreka. Every Bosnian mountain village household kept a stone crock of juniper berries and water fermenting on a sunny windowsill for 25 days in early autumn. Your Bosnian baba harvested the berries from the wild juniper shrubs that grew on every hillside in the Dinaric Alps. She made smreka with no additives, no salt, no honey, just juniper berries and well water. The wild yeasts on the berry skin did the entire fermentation. She gave it to anyone in the village complaining of kidney pain or back pain or aching joints. A 2021 paper in phytotherapy research documented juniper berry preparations matching the diuretic activity of hydrochlorothiazide, a first-line prescription kidney medication. Your baba was not making a peasant drink. She was making the diuretic every village pharmacy in Bosnia sold from a barrel for 400 years. Number 9. The wild yeast sourdough starter. Every farmhouse kitchen from Provence to the Apennines to the Pennsylvania Dutch country to the Tennessee mountains kept a glass jar of flour and water bubbling on the counter for 100 years or more. Your Italian nonna fed her sourdough starter every day. She passed a piece of it to her daughter at the wedding. She passed a piece of it to her neighbour when their starter died. The wild lactobacillus and Saccharomyces strains in a 100-year-old starter constitute a microbial ecosystem you cannot replicate in any laboratory. The slow fermentation breaks down phytic acid in the wheat, releasing minerals the gut cannot otherwise absorb. A paper from 2003 at Lund University documented that sourdough bread improved glycemic response by 40% compared to commercial yeasted bread. Your nonna was not making bread. She was making the only form of wheat the human gut was ever designed to digest. Number 8. June kombucha. Every Tibetan monastery and Himalayan peasant household kept a glass jar of green tea and raw honey, fermenting with a June SCOBY, in a cool room above 7,000 feet of altitude. Your Himalayan popo brewed it for at least 1,400 years before any Westerner had heard of kombucha. She drank a small cup at dawn before prayers. She gave it to the children when they came down with mountain fevers. The Jun ferment retains 80% of green tea catechins through 6 months of refrigerated storage. A bottle of commercial kombucha at Whole Foods today contains less than 10% of the catechin load. Your popo was not making fermented tea. She was making the most concentrated polyphenol delivery vehicle in any food tradition on Earth. Number 7. Amazake. Every Okinawan and rural Japanese village household kept a covered crock of rice fermenting with Aspergillus koji for 8 hours, served warm at sunrise. Your Abachan brewed it before she did any other kitchen work in the morning. She gave a small cup to her husband before he left for the fields. She gave a smaller cup to her grandchildren before they walked to school. Amazake contains the full B vitamin complex synthesized by the koji fungus during fermentation, plus glucose at a slow-release profile that does not spike insulin. A 2018 paper in the journal Bioscience, Biotechnology and Biochemistry documented Amazake improving sleep quality, blood pressure, and skin elasticity in Japanese adults over 50 across a 12-week trial. Okinawan Obachans have the highest concentration of centenarians anywhere on Earth. They drink Amazake every morning. Your doctor has never heard of it. Number 6. Ayurvedic Asava. Every Indian household connected to the Ayurvedic tradition kept a sealed clay vessel of medicinal herbs fermenting in honey and water for 90 days in the dark storeroom. Your Indian daddy prepared a fresh batch every autumn, following recipes documented in the Sushruta Samhita 2,500 years ago. She gave a teaspoon to anyone in the family experiencing stress, insomnia, or fatigue. The 90-day fermentation produces a self-preserving medicinal wine at 5 to 8% alcohol. With the full alkaloid profile of all 3 herbs in a lipid-soluble carrier, the gut absorbs 14 times more efficiently than dried herb capsules. Your daddy was not making wine. She was making the only form of ashwagandha that delivers clinically meaningful blood levels at the doses her grandmother also gave her. Number 5. The Caribbean Gingerbug Soda. Every Caribbean and American Gulf Coast household kept a glass jar of grated fresh ginger, sugar, and water bubbling on the counter for 2 weeks. Your Trinidadian, Jamaican, or Bahamian. Grandmother fed the bug a teaspoon of grated ginger and sugar every morning. She used the bug to ferment fruit juice into naturally carbonated probiotic soda overnight. She gave it to her grandchildren in the heat of the afternoon instead of the bottled sodas they pestered her for. A ginger bug contains billions of live Saccharomyces and lactobacillus per tablespoon. The PepsiCo Corporation paid $1.95 billion for the Poppy soda brand in March 2025, even though Poppy contains 0 live cultures. Your Caribbean grandmother was not making lemonade, she was making the real thing. Number 4. The Wild Lettuce Honey Jar. Every American village pharmacy from 1820 until 1944 kept a glass jar of fresh wild lettuce fermenting in raw honey for 14 days as the standard sleep medication before Ambien. Your American village pharmacy grandmother in the 1930s, or your Polish village pharmacy grandmother in 1944, gave a half teaspoon to anyone who could not sleep through pain. Helena Kowalska, the village pharmacist in Szczebrzeszyn in occupied Poland in the summer of 1944, gave it to a 14-year-old boy with a broken femur who had not slept in 4 days. He slept 6 hours. He survived the war. He testified in 2003 to the Polish Pharmaceutical Association documenting the wartime use. The compound, lactucarium, has no recorded fatal overdoses in 2,500 years of documented use. A monthly supply of Ambien today retails between $30 and $80. A quart of homemade wild lettuce honey costs about $14 and contains 384 doses. Your grandmother was not making honey. She was making the sleep aid the entire American synthetic pharmaceutical industry replaced within a single decade after 1944. Number 3. Fermented turmeric honey paste. Every Indian household connected to the Mughal-era medical tradition kept a glass jar of fresh turmeric rhizome, cracked black peppercorns, and raw honey fermenting for 30 days in the cool storeroom. Your Indian grandmother followed a recipe codified by Hakim Mansur al-Hindi in 1580, Lahore that has not changed in 445 years. She gave it to her husband for joint pain. She gave it to herself when she could not sleep through the night. She gave it to her grandchildren for any inflammation that did not resolve in 2 days. A 2017 paper in food chemistry conducted at Anhui Agricultural University measured curcumin bioavailability in fermented turmeric honey as 70 times the bioavailability of any curcumin capsule sold today. A bottle of Thorn Meriva curcumin at Whole Foods retails for $52. A quart of fermented turmeric honey paste costs about $19 to make and contains the bioavailable equivalent of 8 Thorn Meriva bottles. Your daddy was not making spice paste. She was making the only form of curcumin the human gut can actually absorb. Number 2. The Korean lion's mane honey ferment. Every Korean Buddhist monastery from at least the 7th century kept a sealed clay vessel of fresh lion's mane mushrooms fermenting in raw mountain honey for 60 days in the cool stone storeroom. Your Korean Halmoni passed the recipe down through 1,400 years of unbroken transmission. She gave a teaspoon to elderly monks who began to show what the monastery records describe as the slowing of mind. The mushroom contains herectinones and erinacines, the only documented food compounds that cross the blood-brain barrier and directly stimulate nerve growth factor synthesis in the human hippocampus. A randomized trial in 2009 at the Hokuto Corporation in Japan documented lion's mane improving cognitive scores in adults 50 to 80 years old. A 2019 trial at Tohoku University replicated the finding. A 30-day supply of alpha, brain-new tropic capsules retails for $79. A quart of fermented lion's mane honey costs about $22 to make. Your Halmoni was not making mushroom honey. She was making the only form of brain medicine the average pharmacy has never heard of. And now the climax. Number 1. The single ferment with the longest continuous unbroken transmission in any tradition on Earth, the most documented antioxidant multiplier of any food preparation ever measured, and the strongest modern peer-reviewed support for healthy lifespan extension in adults over 50. The story begins in the autumn of 595 in the Tiantai Monastery on Mount Tiantai in eastern China. An elderly monk named Huizi was beginning to show what the monastery's records describe as the slowing of mind. The monastery's herbal master, a monk named Guanding, walked into the monastery's garden that afternoon and harvested a basket of fresh garlic bulbs. He packed them into a ceramic vessel called a hu. He sealed it. He placed it in the cool stone storeroom behind the kitchen. He left the vessel untouched for 60 days. On the 61st day, he opened it. The garlic inside had transformed. The cloves had turned from white to deep black. The flesh had softened to a texture between dried fig and roasted chestnut. The pungent harshness was gone, replaced by a mellow, almost sweet flavour. Guanding gave Huisi 1 clove every morning. Huisi lived another 14 years in mental clarity equal to a monk of 40. This is black garlic. Your Korean Halmoni made it, your Japanese Obachan made it, your Chinese Ama made it. The fermentation is a slow Maillard reaction driven by the garlic's own enzymes at controlled temperature and humidity. It produces a compound family called pyrroles, with measured antioxidant activity 139 times higher than fresh garlic per gram. A 2018 paper in the journal Molecules documented daily consumption reducing cardiovascular event risk in adults over 50 by 23% over 12 months. A 2021 Korean trial documented systolic blood pressure reduction of 7 mm of mercury in adults over 55. A 2023 Japanese trial replicated the result and added improvement in HbA1c, cognitive scores, and inflammatory markers. A bulb of black garlic at a Japanese specialty grocer retails for $14. A bulb made at home in your own oven, set to 140 degrees Fahrenheit for 60 days, costs 20 cents. Your East Asian grandmother was not fermenting garlic. She was making the single most documented longevity ferment in any tradition on Earth. Here is my challenge. Try one of these this week. Just one. Make the switchel, save the cabbage and start a 90-day kraut. Pick a single bulb of black garlic and slide it into your oven on the lowest setting tonight. I started a wild lettuce honey jar 3 weeks ago and have not used melatonin since. I made a half cup of fermented turmeric paste this March and have not bought a curcumin capsule since. Share which one you're going to make first in the comments. I want to see if the bacon grease jar generation grandmothers get more love than the Korean Halmoni grandmothers, because these were not just kitchen recipes, they were the entire pharmacy of the human species before the synthetic pharmaceutical industry spent 80 years replacing them with pills that work worse and cost more. Your grandmother knew. Now you know too. If you want me to walk you through making your first one by the weekend, grab my free 5-day course, The Lost Ferment, linked in the description. 1 ferment a day, your first one finished by the weekend, no cost.